Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Vijaya Krishnappa from Koksha AI. We are primarily an organization focused on textile sustainability, especially in the craft sector. So what we have developed is a technology, especially we found that while I was working with one of the weaving clusters for economic improvement for a government, that was my first exposure to craft. I realized that the weaver who was making something like a $1,000 to $2,000 a product, he was extremely poor. I was understanding, I mean, for in Indians, by Indian standards, $2,000 product is a luxury product, but the person who was created had life which is nowhere close to luxury. And I found there's something wrong here. And that's when, later when I studied, I realized it's in the market, most of these products are competing with imitation products which are made by synthetics and different products. So I was wondering, how can we correct this market, as a consumer?
In order to be ready for what we are looking for, we need that be sure that probably all these gaps that already exist reduce. And that means that, and I put it that in form of data, probably it's not ready to create all what we are looking for, because something that we are trying to develop is not already there, because is this gap between these indigenous communities and also this craft artisans, etc., there is not yet there. So basically right now, if we are asking for the NI to please consider all these aspects, all this cosmology or all these elements that is key in terms to understand what it's supposed to mean, this indigenous perspective, to put it in some very simple way, is not there yet, because we are not introducing, to put it in very simple way, the AI to these communities. So basically there is a gap and there is a disbalance from that perspective. So from my side, I don't think it's already ready, because it's not considering at least these factors, because it was developed from other parts. It's not developed by, besides of the development, is also constructed or interactive with all these other parts or other population or other peoples. So basically we need to find a way to bring these AIs to all these communities in order that the AI learn from them and not in the opposite side.
While we were keen, we also, that's where even IoT came into picture, because it's not everybody is familiar with entering data, recording data. So that's where we put wearables. So we put IoT because IoTs, in a sense, are more autonomous in terms of collection of data. So, however, what data we collected was is more than not more from a academic or in terms of I would say data collection from protecting heritage or so, but our intention was how do we actually give their due, how do we give that authenticity to the weaver. So while we collected gesture data, we have never so far seen this as, so for example, in handloom, for example, we can look at the data, motion data, and we can say that this kind of motion belongs to a particular small cluster.
So, for example, I do know that there are certain initiatives which are happening to compile. I mean, I read up something about where Japan, they are trying to conserve, and they've already used AI to look at, conserving one type of weaving that is very indigenous to a certain community within Japan itself. I know in India, the government is trying to, compile knowledge database of at least various types of weaving, etc., etc., etc. The question is that these all already existed. I know for a fact that there are craft museums across the world where if you go, you will have what I call dead data, because it's in textbooks, it's in product samples, it's in old audio recordings and video recordings and films, etc. Stuff does exist. The question is not that. The question is that how to make it into usable in usable formats. So
Yeah, I think AI can use this data to like transfer this knowledge through other generations and even teach that to new generations as well. So if we train a model to do like to understand one specific technique or one specific knowledge base, it can transfer it to like in true, like we can create a chatbot, for example, that is like a specifically has this knowledge about this ingenious product or this ingenious indigenous sorry activity that they're doing in this specific part of the world. And so anyone who is interested in that, who can go and ask this chatbot that, oh, okay, how can I learn this? What are the things that I should know about this? What are the specific things that are important in this like specific technique that I need to learn?
Even patient using uh, different products, how would you explain that? How we evaluate ourselves as a consumers? And I won't say like if I love shoes and I have 100 pairs of shoes in my house, I will find different reasons to say, well, it's not that much. But if I multiply it into millions, it goes to a deep impact around how humans are taking decisions. And it will go, sorry for extending my time, but how it goes with the artificial intelligence apply in different sectors to evaluate each of us on what we want and what we really need. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, Virgilio. Thank you so much. Yes, to rethink our way, it is part of the system change we have to transit finally, because if not, nothing is enough and nothing is important finally. It is what fashion makes. And today, children from 12 years to 20, they are the biggest consumer of this industry that makes them ill in health, in mental health. Here is the importance work of Sachin, because fashion is an illness. It's just an illness. And we are allowing our children to be ill in this key moment of the society. So we have to work together in order to re-educate ourselves as parents, as educators, as leading firms, as professionals.
It was a great lab because we are working on understanding what is truly fair trade and how it can be applied to achieve a system change. And of course, we start from fashion and responsible consumption, but then it regards a much larger topic, and it regards even, the times we are living now with problems such as climate change. But our focus is always on grassroots communities, grassroots, involvement, fair trade that actually has a bottom-up approach, and all our research topics spans from slow fashion to greenwashing to indigenous involvement to sustainability to green jobs. So it's truly, a thorough research on the matter. And it was very nice because we had a couple of participants that voted in the interactive activities, and then
about their experience and asking the importance of these interfaces and a dialogue that is friendly for them. That's why Hecho por Nosotros co-creates the tools, and many of the materials are made with them, by them, for them, and for us all together.
We talk or we explore how young people can lead like a necessary and urgent transition towards more conscious, sustainable, and fair consumption models, particularly in the fashion industry. Through a series of presentation and even a Mentimeter, we made a collaborative discussion about the social and environmental impact of the ultra fast fashion model, and the role of the circular economy and the importance of the preserving our cultural heritage and in the textile sector.
So in our lab, we discussed, the title was International Institutions and How AI is Elevating Indigenous and Artisan Economies. Here we discuss also not only the artisanal economies, but also the role of small and medium enterprises in this specific sector. And while we conclude that AI have many benefits for the transactional side of things, let's say for improved communications or to help connect artisans with the markets, one of the key things we agree on is that it helps a lot to generate transparency across the production, across the entire value chain, which is one of the main drivers of value addition, sorry. However, and here is the point where we connect with the role of international organizations. We had the opportunity to listen to Marco, who is an artisan, and other people in the room. And there are many challenges, and some artisans still are not ready enough to use AI. So probably the main role of international organizations, government, philanthropic organizations, and many other institutions would be to close the gap on capacity building to help these small businesses and artisans to use these tools.
It's been incredible, and I think that we are on to something. It feels like maybe there's even an invitation, as we were talking earlier in our group, to think about this more concretely. What are the concrete steps we can take to create those systems actually ourselves? You know, this in itself could be a model, right? That could be a case study for what works and what doesn't work. But beyond that, it's more thinking of inclusivity through the creative process. You know, we've always, as human beings, we're storytellers. So the stories of artists and artisans from around the world also need to be heard, and they need to be heard from the artists themselves. I think that's one way of representing themselves, right? Because we can talk and we can say so many things, but at the end of the day, those lived experiences of what it truly takes to be on the ground, to be carving, to be building something from scratch, to be sourcing those raw materials, talking about what that truly means, that connection, right, between us and the earth. I think that those are the kinds of stories that will give this a concrete framing for why it's important for these artisans to be kind of leading the narrative of the Creative Commons space. And so, yeah, I'm really grateful to be here, and I'm thankful to Adriana and her team and everyone else that's spoken. It's been amazing. I think we can only just take this forward with something practical and doable. Thank you so much.